Hello everybody. It's your boy Proftrof and we're back again with some more Super Eye Patch Wolf. We've not seen much of Super Eye Patch Wolf recently, most because I forgot, okay? It's not that I don't like the dude, he's pretty awesome. So we're gonna watch today The Insanity of Gantz and Why You Should Care. Okay, so Gantz, if you've not seen it already, well, you should read it. The anime is like, it skips a lot, it jumps around a lot, it's not finished, so you should probably read the manga if you're into this type of stuff. It's amazing. It starts off like the main character is a pussy ass little bitch at the start, but he becomes a man. He becomes decent.
Picture this. You and a buddy are waiting for a train at your local train station when suddenly a homeless man falls down onto the tracks, just as 3,000 tons of locomotive begins to barrel towards him. And being the
Okay, by the way, quick note. From what I've heard, like you can actually survive this if you are right on the middle of the thing. Like there is, I've read of people that survived when they fall down on the lines, when they're right in the middle and just lay there. There is a chance that you will survive because there is some room between the train and the middle part of the tracks. It doesn't go all the way down. There was a woman, I think, that was pushed down and survived like that or something like that. So, like, keep in mind, I guess.
locomotive begins to barrel towards
Hopefully it doesn't happen to
And
anybody.
being the
That's scary as fuck.
upstanding young gentleman you are, you climb down onto the tracks in an attempt to save him, which you do, but both you and your well-intentioned friend are struck by the same train and killed. You are now dead.
Or are you?
You awaken in a small apartment overlooking Tokyo's skyline with a group of other people who have all also recently died. In the center of the room lies a giant black orb which begins
Well, one of them hasn't died recently.
singing and speaking and tells you that your lives are now forfeit and tasks you with hunting and killing this alien. You're armed with some highly advanced alien weaponry and rather revealing bodysuits before being teleported into the streets of Tokyo where the hunt begins. A hunt that seems simple at first until things go wrong, things go...
Oh, a quick FYI. If you're not into brutal shit, Gantz probably not for you. It's pretty brutal. It's pretty brutal.
very, very wrong. After a horrific struggle of which only a fraction of your team actually survives, you're teleported back to the apartment, each given point totals based on your performance, and hooray! You may now return to your regular life, but oh no, you have to come back next week and do the same thing again, and then again, and again, and welcome to Gantz. Gantz is a story of ordinary people trapped in a nightmare, taking recently deceased regular folk, be they office workers, high school kids, dogs, or grandmas, and making them compete in games of death.
Whoa. There is a fucking animation? Like a 3D animation?
School kids, dogs, or grandmas, and making them compete in games of death.
But it does not look bad.
Face the horrific and unimaginable. The
Okay,
survivors
well,
of which
yeah.
are temporarily returned to their normal lives before having to do it all again next week alongside a fresh batch of
Ooh.
new participants. And this is the cycle of Gantz. The only way to break free is to kill enough aliens to eventually collect 100 points
Okay,
and
I need to see
select
that.
the option
I need to see
exit
that.
the game forever. But that's a goal very few of these characters will ever reach. Death is brutal and frequent in Gantz. It's not unusual for large swaths of the cast to be wiped out in a single game, and it's for reasons like this, as well as the series' use of excessive sex and violence. Oh, by the way, graphic content warning for this video. The
Too late,
Gantz has
buddy.
gained the reputation as an overtly edgy series, and it is. This is the kind of show I loved as a teenager. As a kid,
Same.
I'd had my perception of media and reality obliterated by the shocking and violent imagery of Akira, and I spent a lot of my teenage years trying to recapture that feeling, which led me to shows like Elfen Lied, Tengu Tenge, and
Oof.
of course,
Yo, this fucking show, it was so good.
feeling, which led me to shows like Elfen Lied.
I need to rewatch that. What's
Tenge,
it
and
called?
Of course,
What's it
Gantz,
called?
which led me to shows like Elfen Lied, Tengu Tenge, and
Tengu
of
Tenge.
course,
I need to
Gantz.
rewatch that shit.
But this side of Gantz has also drawn a lot of criticism. I've seen more than one person argue that this is a series of unmitigated trash. And while I
What?
actually can sympathize with those criticisms, as
Why?
you can guess by the existence of this video,
Well, to be honest, I kind of agree about the sex part in the beginning. It was too excessive, and the main character was like he was he's a fucking horny piece of shit. Like he was not normal teenage horny. He's I might get my head chopped off, but at least I'll get my dick wet. Wow, I fucked that sentence up so bad.
do think there's some genuine heart to this series.
But it was
and
good. I
that
enjoyed the
is
show,
what I'm
the
talking
series.
today. And to do so, I want to start with the man behind Gantz, Hiroya Oku. Hiroya Oku is a strange fellow. After the ending of Gantz was heavily criticized on the Japanese messaging board 2chan, he included a scene in his next
2chan?
manga Inuyashiki where an evil cyborg teenager murders every member of the online messaging
That's by
board.
him as well.
He has a very distinctive approach to storytelling, often focusing on the cruelty and violence humans are capable of and presenting it with a near nihilistic cynicism, as seen in Gantz and each of his series that followed it. But what's interesting is that he wasn't always like this. In fact, his first manga, Hen, was a comparatively light-hearted ichi drama that found success in weekly
Ichi
Young
drama, I'm
Jump
not
magazine.
surprised.
However, things would then take an unfortunate turn. Oku using the profits he'd made from Hen to invest in cutting-edge 3D technology, spending 2 years and all his money training himself and his assistants in the new software, in the hopes of creating a new kind of 3D manga.
Okay.
The only problem was that this was the mid-90s and 3D software still had a long way to go, and so his resulting manga 01 in part looks like this. Yeah. 01 was cancelled after only 3 volumes, leaving Oku without income and on the verge of bankruptcy. And I have to wonder if the desperation of that situation contributed to the bleaker tone of Gantz, and perhaps why its struggle for survival feels so real. Because for Oku, it was. There's a cynicism that runs through every part of Gantz, never more apparent than in its main character, Kei Kurono. And Kurono kind of sucks. He's cynical, isolated.
Okay, he gets better. He really sucks in the beginning, but I can kind of see him as like a redeemed character in my eyes.
Having separated from his family with no friends or anyone he can even really talk to. And because of this, he's grown apathetic and cold, only seeing other people for how they can benefit him, even abusing the trust other people place in him for his own ends. And because of this, it's very easy to dislike Kurono, especially in Gantz's early chapters. But after a little while, what becomes apparent is that he's a product of the world around him. Kurono's school, for example, is presented as this Darwinian nightmare where older students sow violence and humiliation among their younger peers. One particular early story arc involving an upperclassman known as the
Oh yeah, I
Gantz,
remember that shit. That was so fucked up. That made me feel kind of bad. They had this side story shit. Well, not that, but
this
something
is the
else.
world of Gantz. It presents society at its most bleak and callous. And because of this, it's easy to see how Kurono has become the way he is. How the life and enthusiasm he had as a child has been crushed out of him, leaving a cold, cynical shell of a person. And in understanding this, it gives us a believable baseline from which we can watch Kurono grow over the course of the story. And that's a growth that starts when he's drawn into the game of Gantz. While being summoned by Gantz is initially a very bad thing that forces Kurono to face unimaginable horror, it also does something else. It shatters Kurono's isolation, forcing him into contact with the other participants of the game. Their only hope for survival being to work together to overcome whatever danger
Didn't work out
brings.
that well.
And so, slowly, over the course of the games, people start to rely on Kurono, and he in turn begins to rely on them, the group sharing a bond that is absent from Kurono's ordinary life. There's a chapter that illustrates this really beautifully, called Daytime Lantern, which starts with one of Kurono's teachers calling him a daytime lantern, i.e. that he is totally useless. The name catches on in a way that names tend to in high school, and he spends the rest of the day being harassed and insulted by his classmates. But then that evening, he's visited by his teammates from Gantz, who have come to look on him as their leader, and together they bound across rooftops and train for whatever challenge awaits them in the next game. The chapter ending with Kurono staring silently down at the people he's helping. What's so cool about Daytime Lantern is how it captures that feeling of being part of a found family, that in his daily life, Kurono is this nobody who is harassed and ignored. But through Gantz, he's found this group of people he's really important to and are important to him, letting him grow past the selfish asshole we met at the beginning of the story. And what's cool about this chapter is that none of this is overtly stated. Oku just presents us with a day in Kurono's life and lets us come to our own conclusions about it. And this is something I really like about Oku's work. He's a much stronger visual storyteller than he is actual storyteller, often giving very little direct detail about his characters' lives, but revealing who they are, either through their environments, the subtle emotion of their facial expressions, or taking an entire page layout and using it to convey a particular concept or emotion. He has an ability to visually capture a moment and use that moment to give us further insight into who these people are. One of my favourite examples of this comes at the beginning of Gantz's third major story arc. The first panel of the page showing Kurono lying in bed, the isolation he feels conveyed by the empty negative space around him. The next panel revealing his desire to go back to Gantz where he can be with other people. But then immediately this layout is contrasted with the third panel showing Gantz's secondary main character Kato in the same composition. But that negative space is filled with his little brother, Kato racked with anxiety over having to return to the apartment. What I love about this page is how with just 4 simple panels, it shows us the vast difference between these two characters.
Yo, seeing this makes me want to go reread Gantz again a lot, because like I didn't appreciate this when I was a kid. I gotta be honest. It's like I read Gantz when I was in like 16 or 17. It's one of my first mangas that I read fully, so I didn't appreciate any of this shit. I was like, oh, where's my action?
Characters and the impact Gantz is having on their lives. Unlike Kurono, Kato has something to lose, his little brother. Both Kato's parents were killed in an accident when he was younger, leaving him and his little brother in the care of their violent, abusive relatives. And so all the two have is each other, Kato taking it upon himself to get a job and save up enough money to rent an apartment.
Kato was such Chad.
He and his little brother can live in safety and peace. But because of this, his relationship with Gantz is totally different from Kurono's, as he knows that if he's killed, he will vanish from his brother's life without explanation, leaving the child alone and defenseless in a cruel, violent world. This page capturing that anxiety beautifully. And it's for moments like this that I would really recommend the manga of Gantz over all other versions, as well as the fact that it's the only way to experience the vast majority of the story. Okay, you may have noticed from that previous section that Gantz is bleak. Really, really bleak. But part of what makes it such a strange series is that this is only one side of Gantz. The other being that it's totally fucking insane. And to help illustrate this, I'm going to bring back one of my favorite sections.
Which one?
Here's a few out of context moments from Gantz. One of the later battles involves our heroes being attacked by Salvador Dali's 1936 surrealist painting, Soft Construction with Boiled Beans. There is a cute frog who steals people's shoes, who is also a nightmarish hell creature. One of the participants...
All of the fucking aliens are nightmarish hell creatures. What do you mean?
of Gantz is a panda who forms a loving, meaningful relationship with a serial killer. George Clooney is there. This panel happens, and finally, one of the aliens encountered is a robotic version of the 1970s Japanese folk singer Seiji Tanaka,
Oh.
who sings his songs in a creepy robotic voice
I don't
and
know
is
about that.
piloted by giant sentient crow fetuses. Oku, you are a strange man. If you got tonal whiplash
Understatement.
from those two previous sections, then yes, now you know what Gantz feels like. But if anything, rather than these two sides of Gantz clashing, the absurdity of Gantz's world only adds to its nightmarish feel. Parts of Gantz feel like some bizarre fever dream, with our characters facing things that can't possibly exist, but
Like, the way I can best describe Gantz's insane monster design and creepy, scary, you know, moments is Berserk. It's very similar. I think that's why I enjoyed Gantz so much. Like, I enjoyed dark fantasy. It's not really dark fantasy. This, I mean, it kind of is. It's weird to explain. I don't know how the genres work exactly, but it reminded me of Berserk a lot.
they do.
It focuses on other
And
stuff
it's in
though.
these moments that Gantz carries
A
a
little bit.
near nihilistic horror. Like the universe itself is laughing at these people and their struggle. That there are horrors waiting for them, both bizarre and unimaginable. And it's here where we can start to see the horror of Gantz. Every game of Gantz starts the same. People begin appearing in the room one by one, each person is teleported out into the streets of Tokyo. And from here, we know that somewhere in the sprawl of Japanese suburbia lies something dangerous and alien. And there's always this moment when a character notices something strange in the distance. Some vaguely humanoid figure emerging from the shadows. And there's such a tension to these
Oh, I
moments.
remember this motherfucker. This piece of shit. He was so fucking strong. Fucking. Oh, I remember these. This. Fuck.
As there's no telling what these creatures are or how dangerous they might be.
Fucking
They
masturbation
have
forearms.
this frightening, unknowable alien feeling. And that's a feeling that Oku communicates beautifully through his artwork. Put simply, he's exceptional at conveying creatures of raw visual horror. There's a lot of different ways a creature
What the-
can feel
oh, it's
frightening, it
the-
can feel monstrous,
I
it
forgot
can
it was
feel
Alien,
ghostly,
I
it can
think.
feel demonic, all of which play off different anxieties of the human condition to elicit different kinds of fear. Fear of violent animals.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, mangas fucked up horror movies for me. Like, you see these horror movie creatures they make in these movies. And it's like, you know, you should be afraid. That's how the movie works. You should be afraid of them. But after like mangas so far have had the most fucked up things in the mangas that I've read, have had the most fucked up creatures of any other type of media that I've seen, games, whatever. Mangas just, those dudes just, they got the horror shit pretty well. Like, I just gotta say
Fear
that
of
shit.
death and disease, fear of religious ideology, and the fear that the creatures of Gantz specifically elicit is fear of the unknowable and the alien. There's a disturbing quality to the creatures of Gantz, some of which look nearly uncannily human and others abstract and horrifying. But either way, they all carry this
Nice boobies.
unsettling level of realism, each one illustrated with a subtle sense of physicality, grounding the absurdity of their designs in the tiny details of their anatomy. Oku meticulously rendering individual strands of hair, folds of skin, and knots of muscle, and in doing so, sending our brain thousands of tiny subconscious messages that these creatures are real and physical. And this is unsettling, but particularly when Oku uses that nuanced eye for detail to draw our attention to sharp bared fangs, blade-like claws, and swollen, dense muscle, constantly reinforcing the idea that these creatures are powerful and dangerous. Where they start to feel alien, however, is in their intelligence. These are not erratic beasts moving without purpose. These are sentient, intelligent creatures that think and feel and have emotion on par with our own. And it's this that makes them particularly disturbing. Most of the creatures of Gantz aren't aggressors, they're just beings trying to live their lives.
Oh, yo,
and
yo, yo, yo,
blend in.
wait a second. You cannot say most of them, okay? From what I remember, most of them were aggressive, but they're like, that's a very good point. It's like the first one, and it was kind of, it's really fucked up. Like, makes you kind of feel like, oh shit, are we the bad guys? But then you're like, oh, no, we ain't.
Human society, which is why they don uncanny disguises and cloak themselves in our mythology. They just wish to be left in peace, and so to them, we are the violent aggressors attacking without provocation. And so they seethe with emotion and hatred for the humans trying to kill them. And that emotion makes them terrifying, giving violent desperation to their actions, and in some cases even developing vendettas against the humans who hunt them. One particularly chilling instance of this being when one of the aliens survives a game of Gantz, only to appear at Corono's school the next day, looking to take bloody revenge for the friends he's lost. This distinctly alien fear only escalates as the story continues. In the beginning, the creatures of Gantz carry the threat level of basically a very, very dangerous human. But as the games go on, we begin to encounter beings of sheer cosmic terror. Creatures that cannot be understood or comprehended. Invincible alien nightmares whose mere existence causes our heroes to question reality and if a god would ever truly allow
I really want
such
to watch this
horrors
now.
to exist. And in these moments, Gantz becomes taut with a mere existential terror. Adding to that feeling of horror is just how fragile the human participants feel. And again, this is something Oku elicits beautifully through his panel layouts, often placing his human characters in the foreground feeling tiny and insubstantial, and then filling the rest of the frame with the alien beings they face. And these moments are Gantz, instances where ordinary people are forced to face things horrific and impossible.
Okay, another pause. I'm gonna be pausing a lot for this, so quick side note. So when they finally, after the first couple of times they go into Gantz and hunt creatures, they kind of start understanding how the suits work. And at first you think they're extremely overpowered. Like the guns they use are extremely strong, and the suit, like, it gives them insane powers, invisibility, extra strength, endurance. Shit like that. I don't remember what else it does because it's been a while that I've read it. But at first you're like, oh, okay, so this shouldn't be that hard. At the first challenge they had is understanding how to use the suits, because no one explains anything in Gantz. Like, the thing just says go kill stuff. It puts them over there, and it's like, it's up to them to understand it. And then you're like, oh, okay, so they'll be going around killing shit. And then like at one point it spikes, and they're like, they feel good because they have the suits and they think they're indestructible, and bam, they ain't.
While the human participants of Gantz are equipped with high-powered weaponry and suits that enhance their physical abilities, that equipment is unreliable, often not working the way the characters expect, and the suits themselves only able to withstand a very limited amount of damage before they break and become useless, leaving our characters naked and vulnerable against whatever terrors the night holds. And so, you have these horrifying alien creatures and these vulnerable, fragile humans, each arc of Gantz revolving around a single battle between the two sides. But these are not the sportsmanlike showdowns of shonen battle manga. These are more like violent and
My boy went for a fucking elbow drop. Fuck is wrong with you?
emotional car crashes where death is immediate and frequent on both sides. And throughout it all, there's this knowledge that neither side actually wants this, that there are forces beyond the control of both that have trapped them in this scenario, creating
What was that called, a
deeply
tango?
unfair, nearly nihilistic feeling that runs through Gantz. All sides are suffering, and that the universe at large does not care. I think the only way I can properly show this is to actually take you through one of the arcs of Gantz. And
Okay, which one?
unfortunately, to do that, I'm gonna have to get kind of spoilery.
Which
so
one?
skip to here if you want to avoid. The Buddha arc comes at a point in Gantz's
Oh, I was hoping he wouldn't do this one. This one is, oh man, why you gotta do the Buddha arc? Ah, this one is fucked.
story when our protagonists have survived enough of these games that they're beginning to feel confident in their abilities. But straight away, there's a problem. With heavy casualties in the previous game, most of the people summoned by Gantz are brand new, i.e. people who have just died and have no idea what's about to happen. One of which is a Buddhist priest who insists that this is the afterlife and that people need to come practice sutras with him and not listen to Corona.
This is one of the arcs I remember the most from Gantz. Like, most of them are like vague memories. I kinda remember they happened. This one I remember immensely.
Kato, whom he convinces everyone are evil demons trying to mislead them. Because of this, very few of the new recruits actually equip their suits, and so by the time teleportation begins, the team is left at a massive disadvantage. However, despite this, things go surprisingly well in the early stage. The aliens disguised as Buddhist statues are quickly identified and eliminated, helped by the fact that 3 of the newcomers are a gun otaku, a professional sniper, and a karate black belt, until the boss alien of the round is introduced. Each game of Gantz contains one alien that is exponentially more dangerous than the rest. And for this round, it's this thing, and this thing is a fucking nightmare, using its high speed and variety of bizarre, unpredictable attacks, as well as its ability to heal itself from injury, to massacre several members of the team, including some of the most experienced. And from here, the battle begins to take a nightmarish turn, as one by one the team fall to the invincible monstrosity, including Kurono himself, who, during a brief skirmish with the creature, has both his arm and leg severed, leaving him in a bloody pile on the temple floor as his life begins to bleed out. The only thing that can save him now is if he can live long enough for one of the other members of the team to defeat the alien and end the game, at which point he'll be teleported back to the apartment, his body fully restored. A hope that grows ever fainter with each passing second as life after life is snuffed out by the demonic statue, until only Kato is left. Kato, badly injured but desperate to save Kurono and return home to his little brother, fights the monstrosity with everything he has, sustaining heavy damage and even losing an arm, but just as things feel hopeless, he strikes one final, desperate, fatal blow against the creature. Only it's not fatal. The alien being emerges from its damaged shell and takes on the appearance of one of Kato's dead team members. And from here begins viciously beating and mocking an exhausted Kato. And just as the light starts to fade, Kato makes one final desperate attack. And it works. He kills the creature, ending the game. He's done it. Kato can now return home to his little brother. He and Kurono are saved. Only for the creature in one final hateful gasp to impale Kato before dying. And in the pouring rain, as Kato's life begins to slip away, teleportation back to the room begins, and Kurono awakens alone in the apartments. But then, in the silence of the empty room, he comes to a horrifying realization. Kato, along with every other member of his team, is dead. Kurono is the only survivor. He is alone. What's so harrowing about this moment is that it's such a vicious, cold depiction of a character's worst fears coming true. Kurono starts off from this place.
Ooh, I got chills. I got fucking chills.
To rely on his teammates and even care for them, it's all taken away, and it's unfair and devastating and emblematic of the kind of nightmare that Gantz is willing to plunge its characters into. And in doing so, capturing those awful moments in life when our worst fears become reality, and it feels like we've lost everything. At this point, I'm guessing some of you are asking, what is the point to this? Is this just misery for misery's sake, or is there an actual message here?
Misery for
Before I answer that
growth's sake, I
question,
guess.
I think it's important to acknowledge something, and that is that Gantz will not be for everybody. And that's for a variety of different reasons. I enjoy Gantz a lot, and I'm not going to pretend I don't, but I feel it's also my responsibility to warn people that there are aspects of Gantz that they could find upsetting. Aside from the sheer level of violence and cruelty that we've already talked about, there's several aspects to the story that I could ignore as a teenager, but now, not so much. The early chapters are pretty terrible in how they treat their female characters, especially Kay, who gets a raw deal throughout. And this is
She
something
gets
that
that.
improves slightly later on when much better
Okay.
female characters are introduced, but it can be pretty rough. Both
The
the
dick
anime
a
and
lot,
manga
okay.
have some pretty horrific depictions of sexual violence against both men and women. There's a pretty horrendous depiction of a gay man and a absolutely bizarre instance of racial insensitivity, as well as multiple occurrences of mass violence, including a straight-up public shooting. This is something I've struggled with a lot in writing videos, and in particular this one. When does a piece of media cross the line when covering sensitive material, and when...
Oh, come on, buddy. I hate this topic. I hate when people are like, there is a line. There is no fucking line, okay? We're humans. Whatever you think nowadays has been a bad thing that's happened, like a school shooting, shit like that, back in our medieval ages and before that, we've done way fucking worse, okay? Probably the worst thing nowadays we've done is the nukes. And I mean, that's extremely fucked up. A lot of people don't think about how fucked up that is, but that's probably the worst thing we've done in humanity I can think of. Just don't know. Well, actually, Nazi shit's pretty fucked up. Okay, listen, there's a lot of fucked up shit we do. So like these things in media that we portray, I don't think they're that bad. Okay, that's my opinion. And it's not about being that bad. It's like it represents human nature. Okay, people have done these things. Okay, so we are capable of doing extremely fucked up things to each other. I don't think it should be censored for any reason. It's like, okay, yeah, normal people can see, yeah, that is fucked up. We probably shouldn't go around shooting up schools and shit. So I don't see what the problem with this is.
And Gantz, to me, definitely crosses that line. It frequently wanders into sensitive territory and uses it for shock value as opposed to
It does.
into its
It does a
narrative
lot.
or exploring it in any kind of meaningful way. And this is a side of Gantz and Oku's writing in general that I really don't like. But rewriting this paragraph what feels like a dozen different times, including nearly deciding to not make this video, I've come to the conclusion that I am not the arbiter of what is and is not okay in media. I think that's a line each person needs to draw for themselves.
Exactly.
And all I can do is flag that these issues exist in Gantz and to say that if you are uncomfortable with them, parts of Gantz are going to be very difficult for you to get through. And
I mean, listen, you should be uncomfortable with them. That is the point. Like, that's why they do this. Like, if you are not uncomfortable with them, that's probably a problem. Okay? That is probably a problem.
Outright upsetting, then I think you should avoid Gantz entirely as well as any of Oku's other work. With that in mind, I want to now return to the question, what is the appeal of this series? And is there a point to the violence?
Quick pause, I need to go do something real quick. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, some time went past. Okay, I had to go outside, I'm sorry. But I had to do some stuff. Anyway, we're back with Gantz.
And misery. And personally, I think there is. I think there is a heart to this nightmare, and to explain what that is, I want to use one final example from Gantz's story.
Shit.
In particular, that of my two favorite characters of the series. Spoilers incoming. Around halfway through Gantz, a new character is pulled into the game of death, Kaze, a tall, extremely powerful man who practices Bajikwan, a Chinese martial art that involves channeling your entire body weight into a single explosive strike. A style of fighting that he's become so proficient at that he's practically invincible. Kaze is an unusual addition to the cast of Gantz. You have ordinary people like high school kids and office workers, and then all of a sudden you have this 80s shonen action hero dropped among them. And like those heroes, his motivation is simple. He wants to test himself against the strongest opponents he can find.
Perfect place for him.
A quest that's cut short when he's killed in a mass shooting, only to be brought back by Gantz and forced to participate in the hunts, where his monstrous fighting ability let him excel in the games of death. Finally, Kaze has found a battleground that lets him fight to his full potential, and he's content. But things take a turn in the next game when Kaze and his teammates realize that one of the new participants is a small child.
Oh, I
a boy
forgot
who, upon
about this
seeing
shit.
Kaze, confuses him with his favorite tokusatsu hero, Muscle Rider, and begins to follow Kaze around the apartment. Kaze ignores the boy at first.
Okay, that was a bad picture to show for following him around the apartment, buddy. What are you trying to say? Okay.
And begins
Okay, listen. It's not this side of YouTube. Okay, no pedophiles here. Okay.
to follow Kaze around the apartment. Kaze ignores the boy at first, as he does anything that is not physical combat, but when the teleportation stage begins, the child refuses to wear his suit despite the pleas of the other teammates, until Kaze reluctantly tells the boy to put it on, for the first time showing concern for something beyond fighting. The child continues to follow Kaze, whom he still is convinced is his hero, Muscle Rider, and slowly Kaze softens towards the lad, who he finds out is named Takashi, with Kaze protecting Takashi for the remainder of the game. After which, Kaze even takes the boy in while attempting to find his parents, until he learns how Takashi died, from being beaten by his mother's abusive boyfriend, his life slipping away alone in an apartment of squalor, calling out for his hero, Muscle Rider. Kaze, devastated and moved by Takashi's story, now takes the boy in as family, the two becoming inseparable. But then, in the beginning of the next game, things take a horrifying turn.
They always do.
Takashi is the first one to be teleported
They
to
always
the
do.
battleground, leaving the 4-year-old alone on the streets of Osaka, vulnerable to whatever horror awaits. One of which emerges from the shadows and begins making its way towards the helpless boy. Takashi tries to run away, but it's useless. The creature catches him in its cold alien grasp, lowers its face to his, and closing its jaws around his tiny skull. Takashi is killed. Oh, wait, hang on. No, he isn't. Takashi, channeling all his power into a single devastating strike, destroys the creature by imitating the very movements he's seen Kaze perform countless times. And upon witnessing this, Kaze is overcome with emotion and love for Takashi, and he breaks down in tears. That love awakening a new strength in Kaze, now fighting not just for himself, but in the hope of one day freeing himself and Takashi from Gantz and starting a new life together in peace. It was in this moment that the message of Gantz clicked with me. No matter how awful or horrifying the world might seem, it's our connection to other people that let us survive it and make it worth surviving. While Oku does create these instances of cruel, violent nihilism, it's how he contrasts those moments with ones of intense humanity and love that make his stories worth reading. And this to me is the heart of Gantz.
Oh, another thing. These are my favorite type of stories, by the way. I love reading these dark fantasy stories, only because, not because I like seeing, people get fucked, but it's because, like, from the lowest points, the highest peaks shit, I love watching that shit, bro. I fucking love that.
People trapped
Seeing
in
humans
this
fuck up,
world of
raise great
nightmares,
thoughts.
but finding each other through it
I love
and
that shit,
together
bruh.
surviving. And that's what I think's kind of beautiful about this series, its ability to capture the bleakest dark and purest light, and to say that even if the world is collapsing around us, all we really need is each other. That really, that's all we ever have.
Deep shit. That's some deep shit.
Friends, thank you for joining me today. And I
Hey,
really
this was
hope
an
you
awesome
enjoyed
video,
this
bro.
video.
Oh, I already liked it.
Little quick note, the
Fuck.
official Super iPad 12 t-shirt is back in stock at Fangamer. These sold out pretty quick last time.
Hey,
so
that's a
it's
cool
get 'em
t-shirt,
while
bro.
you can. I want to give a massive thank you to my patrons over at Patreon. It is literally entirely down to you guys that have the freedom to make videos like this, so genuinely thank you so much. And hey, if you'd like to become one for just a single dollar, you can do so over at patreon.com/super eyepatchwolf. A personal thank you this week to Mohammed Nahas, Yamcha Kapoor, original name, Applebane,
Applebane.
Lana Ashley,
That's a cool ass fucking name.
Deadfish Walking, and I made this for Super Eyepatch Wolf, and it's super long. Oh, buddy, I'm gonna have to cut that down in Photoshop every time I do credits, and it's just you're killing me here. Thank you for the support. I love you. As ever, you can find me hosting the Let's Fight a Boss video game podcast or on Twitter at iPatch.
Okay. Quick thank you to my patrons, which aren't as many, but I still love y'all. Okay. Pedro Martinez, Command _ Raw Barrier Princess, Swastatic, Fewest Chicken 53. Anyway, thank y'all. I love y'all. Yeah, this was requested a decent amount, so I'm glad we finally got it over with. It was very good. I'm probably gonna have to reread Gantz after this. Yeah, and if you are into this dark type of worlds, definitely suggest it. It reminded me a bit of Berserk. Setting is completely different, but it has like the same kind of points of very low, starts off kind of good, kind of giddy, and then everything gets fucked. And yeah, it's good. I enjoyed it, and I'm probably gonna enjoy it again after I reread it. Anyway, have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you next time.